Hi, good morning to everyone. Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, verses 12th. Today's 14th day. Let's get started. Men in this world desire success in fruitive activities and therefore they worship the demigods quickly. Of course, men get results from fruitive work in this world. There is a great misconception about the gods or demigods of this material world and man of less intelligence. Although passing as great scholars take these demigods to be various forms of the Supreme Lord. Actually, the demigods are not different forms of God, but they are God's different parts and parcels. God is one, and the parts and parcels are many. The Veds say God is one. The Supreme God is one, Krishna, and the demigods are delegated with powers to manage this material world. These demigods are all living entities with different grades of material power. They cannot be equal to the Supreme God, Narayan, Vishnu, or Krishna. Anyone who thinks that God and the demigods are on the same level is called an atheist or pasandi. Even the great demigods like Brahma and Shiva cannot be compared to the Supreme Lord. In fact, the Lord is worshipped by demigods such as Brahma and Shiva. Yet curiously enough, there are many human leaders who are worshipped by foolish men under the misunderstanding of anthropomorphism or zoomorphism. Denotes a powerful man or demigod of this material world. But Narayan, Vishnu, or Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, does not belong to this world. He is above or transcendental to material creation. Even Shripad Shankaracharya, the leader of the impersonalists, maintains that Narayan or Krishna is beyond this material creation. However, foolish people worship the demigods because they want immediate results. They get the results but do not know that results so obtained are temporary and are meant for less intelligent persons. The intelligent person is in Krishna consciousness and he has no need to worship the paltry demigods for some immediate temporary benefit. The demigods of this material world as well as their worshippers will vanish with the annihilation of this material world. The boons of the demigods are material and temporary. Both the material worlds and their inhabitants, including the demigods and their worships, and bubbles in the cosmic ocean In this world, however, human societies match after temporary things such as the material opulence of possessing land, family, and enjoyable paraphernalia to achieve such temporary things. People worship the demigods of powerful man, human society. If a man gets some ministership in the government by worship of political leader, he considers that he has achieved a great boon. All of them are therefore owing to the so-called leaders or beacons in order to achieve temporary boons, and they indeed achieve such things. Such foolish men are not interested in Christian consciousness for the permanent solution to the hardships of material existence. They are all after sense enjoyment, and to get a little facility for sense enjoyment, they are attracted to worship empowered living entities known as demigods. This verse indicates that people are really interested in Christian consciousness. They are mostly interested in material enjoyment, and therefore they worship some powerful living entity. Verse is 13th. According to the three modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the four divisions of human society are created by me. And although I am the creator of this system, you should know that I am yet the non-doer, being unchangeable. The Lord is the creator of everything. Everything is born of Him. Everything is sustained by Him. And everything after annihilations rests in Him. He is therefore the creator of the four divisions of the social order, beginning with the intelligent class of men, technically called Brahmans, due to their being situated in the mode of goodness. Next is the administrative class, technically called the Kshatriyas, due to their being situated in the mode of patience. The mercantile men, called the Vaisyas, are situated in the mixed modes of patience and ignorance, and the Sudras or laborer class are situated in the ignorant mode of material nature. In spite of His creating the four divisions of human society, Lord Krishna does not belong to any of these divisions, because He is not one of the conditioned souls, a sections of whom for human society. Human society is similar to any other animal society, but to elevate man from the animal status, the above mentioned divisions are created by the Lord for the systematic development of Christian consciousness. The tendency of a particular man toward work is determined by the modes of material nature which he has acquired. Such symptoms of life, according to the different modes of material nature, are described in the 18th chapter of this book. A person in Christian consciousness, however, is above Even the Brahmans, although Brahmans by quality are supposed to know about Brahman, the supreme absolute truth. Most of them approach only the impersonal Brahman manifestation of Lord Krishna. But a man who transcends the limited knowledge of a Brahman and reaches the knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna becomes a person in Krishna consciousness, or in other words, a Vaishnava. Krishna consciousness includes knowledge of all different plenary expansions of Krishna, namely Ram, Nasma, Vraha, etc. And as Krishna is transcendental to this system of these four divisions of human society, a person in Krishna consciousness is also transcendental to all divisions of human society. Whether we consider the division of community, nations, or species. Verse is 14th. There is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. One who understands this truth about me also does not become entangled in the fruitive reaction of work. As there are constitutional laws in the material world stating that the king can do no wrong, or that the king is not subject to the state laws. Similarly, the Lord, although He is the creator of this material world, is not affected by the activities of the material world. He creates and remains aloof from the creation, whereas the living entities are entangled in the fruitive results of material activities because of their propensity for lording it over material resources. The proprietor of an establishment is not responsible for the right and wrong activities of the workers, but the workers are themselves responsible. The living entities are engaged in their respective activities of sense gratification, and these activities are not ordained by the Lord. For advancement of sense gratification, the living entities are engaged in the work of this world, and they aspire to heavenly happiness after death. The Lord, being full in himself, has no attraction for so-called heavenly happiness. The heavenly demigods are only his engaged servants. The proprietor never desires the low-grade happiness such as the workers may desire. He is aloof from the material actions and reactions. For example, the rains are not responsible for different types of vegetation that appear on the earth. Although without such rains there is no possibility of vegetative growth. Vedic Smriti confirms this fact as follows. In the material creation, the Lord is only the supreme cause. The immediate cause is material nature, by which the cosmic manifestation is made visible. The created beings are of many varieties, such as the demigods, human beings and lower animals, and all of them are subject to the reaction of their past good or bad activities. The Lord only gives them the proper facilities for such activities and the regulations of the modes of nature. But He is never responsible for their past and present activities. In the Vedanta Sutra, it is confirmed the Lord is never partial to any living entity. The living entity is responsible for his own acts. The Lord only gives him facilities through the agency of material nature, the external energy. Anyone who is fully conversant with all the intricacies of this law of karma or fruitive activities does not become affected by the results of his activities. In other words, the person who understands this transcendental nature of the Lord is an experienced man in Christian consciousness, and thus he is never subjected to the laws of karma. And one who does not know the transcendental nature of the Lord and who thinks that the activities of the Lord are aimed as fruitive results as are the activities of the ordinary living entities, certainly becomes entangled himself in fruitive reactions. But one who knows the supreme truth is a liberated soul fixed in Christian consciousness. Verse is 15th. All the liberated souls in ancient times act with this understanding of my transcendental nature. Therefore, you should perform your duty, following in their footsteps. There are two classes of men. Some of them are full of polluted material things within their hearts, and some of them are materially free. Christian consciousness is equally beneficial for both of these persons. Those who are full of dirty things can take to the line of Christian consciousness for a gradual cleansing process, following the regulative principles of devotional service. Those who are already cleansed of the impurities may continue to act in the same Christian consciousness so that others may follow their exemplary activities and thereby be benefited. Foolish persons or neophytes in Christian consciousness often want to retire from activities without having knowledge of Christian consciousness. Arjuna's desire to retire from activities on the battlefield was not approved by the Lord. One need only how to act to retire from the activities of Christian consciousness and to sit aloof making a show of Christian consciousness is less important than actually engaging in the field of activities for the sake of Christian. Arjuna is here advised to act in Christian consciousness, following in the footsteps of the Lord's previous disciples such as the sun god Vivaswan, as mentioned hereinbefore. The Supreme Lord knows all his past activities as well as those of persons who act in Christian consciousness in the past. Therefore, he recommends the acts of the Son God, who learned this art from the Lord some millions of years before. All such students of Lord Krishna are mentioned here as past liberated persons engaged in the discharge of duties allotted by Krishna. Verse is 16th. Even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now, I shall explain to you what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all misfortune. Action in Christian consciousness has to be executed in accord with the examples of previous bona fide devotees. This is recommended in the 15th verse. Why such action should not be independent will be explained in the text to follow. To act in Christian consciousness, one has to follow the leadership of authorized persons who are in a line of disciplic succession as explained in the beginning of this chapter. The system of Christian consciousness was first narrated to the Sun God. The Sun God explained it to his son Manu. Manu explained it to his son Ikshvaku. And the system is current on this earth from that very remote time. Therefore, one has to follow in the footsteps of previous authorities in the line of disciplic succession. Otherwise, even the most intelligent man will be bewildered regarding the standard actions of Christian consciousness. For this reason, the Lord decided to instruct Arjuna in Christian consciousness directly. Because of the direct instruction of the Lord to Arjuna, anyone who follows in the footsteps to Arjuna is certainly not bewildered. It is sad that one cannot be ascertain the ways of religion simply by imperfect experimental knowledge. Actually, the principles of religion can only be laid down by the Lord Himself. Dharmam. No one can manufacture a religious principle by imperfect speculation. One must follow in the footsteps of great authorities like Brahma, Shiva, Narad, Manu, the Kumras, Kapil, Prahlad, Bhishma, Sukhdev, Goswami, Yamraj, Janak, and Bali Maharaj. By mental speculation, one cannot ascertain what is religion or self-realization. Therefore, out of causeless mercy to his devotees, the Lord explains directly to Arjuna what action is and what inaction is. Only action performed in Christian consciousness can deliver a person from the entanglement of material existence. Verse is 17th. The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, One should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. If someone is serious about liberation from material bondage, one has to understand the distinctions between action, inaction, and unauthorized actions. One has to apply oneself to such an analysis of action, reaction, and perverted action because it is a very difficult subject matter to understand Christian consciousness and action according to its modes. One has to learn one's relationship with the Supreme. One who has learned perfectly knows that every living entity is an eternal servitor of the Lord and that consequently one has to act in Christian consciousness. The the entire Bhagavad Gita is directed towards this conclusion. Any other conclusions against this consciousness and its attendant actions are vikrams or prohibited actions. To understand all this, one has to associate with authorities in Christian consciousness and learn the secret from them. This is as good as learning from the Lord directly. Otherwise, even the most intelligent person will be bewildered. Verses 18th. One who see in action, and action in inaction is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. A person acting in Christian consciousness is naturally free from the bonds of karma. His activities are all performed for Christian. Therefore, he does not enjoy or suffer any of the effects of work. Consequently, he is intelligent in human society, even though he is engaged in all sorts of activities for Christian. Without reaction to work, the impersonalist cases fruitive activities out of fear, so that the resultant action may not be a stumbling block on the path of self-realization. But the personalists know rightly his position as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he engages himself in the activities of Christian consciousness because everything is done for Christian. He enjoys only transcendental happiness in the discharge of this service. Those who are engaged in this process are known to be without desire for personal sense gratification. The sense of eternal servitorship to Christian makes one immune to all sorts of reactionary elements of work. Verses 19th. One is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sage to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burnt up by the fire of perfect knowledge. Only a person in full knowledge can understand the activities of a person in Christian consciousness, because the person in Christian consciousness is devoid of all kinds of sense gratificatory propensities. It is to be understood that he has burnt up the reactions of his work by perfect knowledge of his constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is actually learned who has attained to such perfection of knowledge. Development of this knowledge of eternal servitorship to the Lord is compared to fire. Such a fire, once kindled, can burn up all kinds of reactions to work. Verse is 20th. Avoiding all attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings. This freedom from the bondage of action is possible only in Christian consciousness, when one is doing everything for Christian. A Christian conscious person acts out of pure love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he has no attraction for the results of the action. He is not even attached to his personal maintenance, for everything is left to Christian. Nor is he anxious to secure things, nor to protect things already in his possession. He does his duty to the best of his ability and leaves everything to Christian. Such an unattached person is always free from the resultant reactions of good and bad. It is as although he were not doing anything. This is the sign of akrama, or actions without fruitive reaction. Any other action, therefore devoid of Christian consciousness, is binding upon the worker, and that is real aspect of vikrama, as explained herein before. Verse 21st. Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorships over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus, working, he is not affected by sinful reactions. A Christian conscious person does not expect good or bad results in his activities. His mind and intelligence are fully controlled. He knows that because he is part and parcel of the Supreme, the part played by him as a part and partial of the whole is not his own activity, but is only being done through him by the Supreme. When the hand moves, it does not move out of its own accord, but by the endeavor of the whole body. A Christian conscious person is always Towitelled with the supreme desire, for he has no desire for personal sense gratification. He moves exactly like a part of a machine, as a machine part requires oiling and cleaning for maintenance. So, a Christian conscious man maintains himself by his work just to remain fit for action in the transcendental, loving service of the God. He is therefore immune to all the reactions of his endeavors like an animal's. He has no proprietorship even over his own body. A cruel proprietor of an animal sometimes kills the animal in his possession. Yet the animal does not protest, nor does it have any real independence. A Christian conscious person fully engaged in self realization has very little time to falsely possess any material object. For maintaining body and soul, he does not require unfair means of accumulating money. He does not therefore become contaminated by such material sins. He is free from all reactions to his actions. Verses 22nd. He who is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord, who is free from duality and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled although performing actions. A Christian conscious person does not make much endeavor even to maintain his body. He is satisfied with gains which are often of their own accord. He neither begs nor borrows, but he labors honestly as far as is in his power, and is satisfied with whatever is obtained by his own honest labor. He is therefore independent in his livelihood. He does not allow anyone's service to hamper his own service in Christian consciousness. However, for the service of the Lord, he can participate in any kind of action without being disturbed by the duality of the material world. The quality of the material world is felt in terms of heat and cold, or misery and happiness. A Christian conscious person is above duality because he does not hesitate to act in any way for the satisfaction of Christian. Therefore, he is steady both in success and in failure. These signs are visible when one is fully in transcendental knowledge. 23rd verse. The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence, becoming fully Christian conscious. One is freed from all dualities and thus is free from the contaminations of the material modes. he can become liberated because he knows his constitutional position in relationship with Krishna, and thus his mind cannot be drawn from Krishna consciousness. Consequently, whatever he does for Krishna, who is the primeval Vishnu. Therefore, all his works are technically sacrifices because sacrifice aims at satisfying the Supreme Person, Vishnu Krishna. The resultant reactions to all such work certainly merge into transcendence, and one does not suffer material effects. Verse is 24th. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities in which the consummation is absolute, and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. How activities in Krishna consciousness can lead one ultimately to the spiritual goal is described here. There are various activities in Krishna consciousness, and all of them will be described in the following verses, but for the present, just the principle of Krishna consciousness is described. A conditioned soul entangled in material contamination is sure to act in the material atmosphere, and yet he has to get out of such an environment. The process by which the conditioned soul can get out of the material atmosphere is Krishna consciousness. For example, a patient who is suffering from a disorder of the bowels due to overindulgence in milk products is cured by another milk product, namely curds. The materially absorbed conditioned soul can be cured by Krishna consciousness is set forth here in the Gita. This process is generally known as yajna or activities sacrifice, simply meant for the satisfaction of Vishnu or Krishna. The more activities of the material such world are performed in Krishna consciousness or for Vishnu, only the more the atmosphere becomes spiritualized by complete absorption. The word Brahman means spiritual. The Lord is spiritual, and the rays of his transcendental body are called Brahm Jyoti. His spiritual effulgence, everything that exists is situated in that Brahm Jyoti. But when the Jyoti is covered by illusion, Maya or sense gratification, it is called material. This material wheel can be removed at once by Krishna consciousness. Thus, the offering for the sake of Krishna consciousness, the consuming agent of such an offering or contribution, the process of consumption, the contributor, and the result are all combined together. Brahman or the absolute truth. The absolute truth covered by Maya is called matter. Matter dovetailed for the cause of the absolute truth. Regains its spiritual quality. Krishna consciousness is the process of converting the illusory consciousness into Brahman or the Supreme. When the mind is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, it is said to be in samadhi or trance. Anything done in such transcendental consciousness is called yajna or sacrifice. For the Absolute, in that condition of spiritual consciousness, the contribution and consumption, the performer or leader of the performance, and the result or ultimate gain. Everything becomes one in the Absolute, the Supreme Brahman. That is the method of Krishna consciousness. Verses 25th. Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some of them offer sacrifices in the fire of the Supreme Brahman. As described above, a person engaged in discharging duties in Krishna consciousness is also called a perfect yogi or a first class mystic. But there are others also who perform similar sacrifices in the worship of demigods, and still others who sacrifice to the Supreme Brahman or the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord. So, there are different kinds of sacrifice in terms of different categories. Such different category of sacrifice by different types of performance only superphysically demark varieties of sacrifice. Factually, sacrifice means to satisfy the Supreme Lord Vishnu, who is also known as yajna, sacrifice. All the different varieties of sacrifice can be placed within the two primary divisions, namely sacrifice of worldly possessions and sacrifice in pursuit of transcendental knowledge. Those who are in Krishna consciousness sacrifice all material possessions for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, while others who want some temporary material happiness sacrifice their material possessions to satisfy demigods such as Indra, the sun god, etc., and others who are impersonalists sacrifice their identity by merging into the existence of impersonal Brahman. The demigods are powerful living entities appointed by the Supreme Lord for the maintenance and supervision of all material functions like the heating, watering, and lighting of the universe. Those who are interested in material benefits worship the demigods by various sacrifices according to the Vedic rituals. They are called believers in many gods, but others who worship the impersonal feature of the Absolute truth and regard the forms of demigods as temporary sacrifice. They are individual selves in the supreme fire and thus and their individual existence by merging into the existence of the supreme. Such impersonalists sacrifice their time in philosophical speculation to understand the transcendental nature of the supreme. In other words, the fruitive workers sacrifice their material possessions for material enjoyment, whereas the impersonalist sacrifices his material designations with a view to merging into the existence of the supreme. For the impersonalists, the fire altar of sacrifice is a supreme Brahman, and the offering is a self being consumed by the fire of Brahman. The Christian conscious person like Arjun, however, sacrifices everything for the satisfaction of Krishna, and thus all his material possessions as well as his own self. Everything is sacrificed of Krishna. Thus, he is the first class yogi, but he does not lose his individual existence. Verse is 26th. Some sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control, and others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. The members of the four divisions of human life, namely the brahmachari, the grahast, the vanprastha, and the sannyasi, are all meant to become perfect yogis or transcendentalists, since human life is not meant for our enjoying sense gratification like the animals. The four orders of human life are so arranged that one may become perfect in spiritual life. The brahmacharyas, or students under the care of a bona fide spiritual master, control the mind by abstaining from sense gratification. A brahmacharya hears only words concerning Krishna consciousness. Hearing is a basic principle for understanding, and therefore the pure brahmacharya engages fully in her chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord. He restrains himself from the vibrations of material sounds, and his hearing is engaged in the transcendental sound vibration of Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Similarly, the householders who have some license for sense gratification perform such acts with great restraint. Sex life, intoxication, and meat eating and general trans tendencies of human society. But a regulated householder does not indulge in unrestricted sex life and other sense gratification. Marriage on the principles of religious life is therefore current in all civilized human society, because that is a way for restricted sex life. This restricted unattached sex life is also kind of sacrifice because the restricted household sacrifice is general tendency toward sense gratification for higher transcendental life. Verse is 27th. Others who are interested in achieving self-realization through control of the mind and senses offer the functions of all the senses and of the life breath as oblations into the fire of the controlled mind. The yoga system conceived by Patanjali is referred to herein. In the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, the soul is called Pratyag Atma and Prag Atma. As long as the soul is attached to sense enjoyment, it is called Prag Atma. But as soon as the same soul becomes detached from such sense enjoyment, it is called the Pratyag Atma. The soul is subjected to the functions of 10 kinds of air at work within the body, and this is perceived through the breathing system. The Patanjali system of yoga instructs one on how to control the functions of the body's air in the technical manner so that ultimately all the functions of the air within become favorable for purifying the soul of material attachment. According to this yoga system is the ultimate goal. This Pratyag Atma is withdrawn from activities in matter. The senses interact with the sense objects like the ear for hearing, eyes for seeing, nose for smelling, tongue for tasting, hand for touching, and all of them are thus engaged in activities outside the self. They are called the functions of the Pranavayu. The Apavayu goes downwards. Vyanavayu acts to shrink and expand. Samanvayu adjusts equilibrium, goes upwards, and when one is enlightened, one's engaged. All these in searching for self-realization. Verses 28. The having accepted strict was, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions and others by performing seva austerities, by practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticisms, or by studying the Veds to advance in transcendental knowledge. These sacrifices may be fitted into various divisions. There are persons who are sacrificing their possessions in the form of various kinds of charities. In India, the rich mercantile community of princely orders open various kinds of charitable institutions like Dharmsala, Annakshetra, Athithi Sala,